While President Trump was boarding Air Force One for Beijing on May 13th, the first American president to set foot in China in nearly 9 years, something else was happening 500 miles away. In a luxury hotel in Toronto, Canada, Barack Obama, Alex Soros, and Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney were holding a secret, closed-door war council. No cameras, no press, no public agenda. Ask yourself, why would the former U.S. president fly to another country to meet with the son of George Soros, the very same weekend that the sitting U.S. president was flying to negotiate directly with the most powerful nation on earth? The answer to that question is what this video is about, and by the end of it, you're going to see the global chessboard in a completely new way. I'm your channel name, and today I'm breaking down the two summits that nobody is connecting, the one in Beijing and the one in Toronto, and why together they reveal the biggest geopolitical power shift of our lifetimes. Let's start in Toronto. On May 9th and 10th, 2026, the Global Progress Action Summit was held at the Royal York Hotel. It was co-hosted by Canada 2020 and the Centre for American Progress, better known as CAP. Now, CAP is not just a think tank. It was founded by John Podesta, Bill Clinton's chief of staff, Obama's counselor, Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign chairman, and Biden's climate czar. It is the de facto operational headquarters of the Democratic Party between administrations. Barack Obama flew in on a Friday night for a private, closed-door gala dinner with Prime Minister Mark Carney. The very next day, the full Obama-Soros apparatus arrived, including Pete Buttigieg, the former Biden transportation secretary, who is now a 2028 presidential frontrunner, and Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan, a former CIA analyst, also being groomed for the top job. And then there was Alex Soros, son of globalist billionaire George Soros and now the head of his Open Society Foundation empire, attending in person. The keynote was delivered by Neera Tanden, head of the Center for American Progress, who was introduced, and I want you to catch this word, as leading the opposition in the United States. And another speaker, Patrick Gaspar, who was Obama's national political director, then the head of Soros's Open Society Foundation, and is now at CIAP, said this: "The death of the old model of the world is shocking and traumatic. What do we need to be doing in our spaces that prepares us for this moment after the interregnum?" They use the word interregnum. That's the Latin term for the gap between the reign of two kings. They are literally saying Trump's presidency is just a temporary interruption before their world order comes back. Now, here's the plan they rolled out in Toronto. Mark Carney's foreign minister, Anita Anand, called it the Carney Doctrine and described it as principled pragmatism. Sounds reasonable, right? Here's what it actually means in plain English. Keep all the structures of globalism in place: free trade agreements, the Green New Deal agenda, NATO, open borders immigration, and perpetual foreign wars. But acknowledge that the public is furious about it and pretend to care about working class economic pain while changing nothing. This is not a reform movement. This is a rebrand. This is the same globalist machine with a new paint job. And the American face of this rebrand is being assembled right now. Senator Slotkin, Pete Buttigieg, both of them are being positioned as the serious, pragmatic alternative to the hard progressive left that collapsed in 2024. Slotkin even admitted on stage in public that the old foreign policy has failed because ordinary people can't see how it benefits them. That is an extraordinary admission. They are confessing the failure of 2 decades of interventionist globalism. The Toronto summit came just days after Keir Starmer's Labour government suffered a historic defeat in British local elections. The globalist left is losing everywhere. Britain, Canada's internal polls, Australia, across Europe, and they know it. Now, while Carney and Obama were wargaming damage control in Toronto, President Trump landed in Beijing, the first American president to make a state visit to China in nearly 9 years. This is a massive deal. Let me give you the context. In 2025, the U.S.-China trade war escalated to tariffs over 140%. China hit back by restricting rare earth mineral exports, the materials that go into literally every advanced weapon system and microchip on the planet. Markets shook. The world held its breath. Then, in October 2025, the two sides reached a fragile trade truce in Busan, South Korea. Trump called that meeting, and I am quoting him directly, 12 out of 10. Now, 7 months later, Trump is in Beijing for a full state visit. On the agenda, a new board of trade to enforce purchase commitments, expanded rare earth access, Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, Taiwan, and AI cooperation. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg personally joined the delegation, signaling massive business deals on the table, and Eric Trump and Lara Trump also traveled with the president. The business dimension of this visit is enormous. Now, here's the piece that the mainstream media is completely ignoring. Just days before Trump's trip, Russian President Putin, during his annual Victory Day address on May 9th, listed Russia's partners and friends as China, India, and the United States. Not China and Russia against America. Not the old Cold War geometry. The three largest nations on Earth, described by Vladimir Putin as working together. That one sentence from Putin, delivered on the 81st anniversary of the Allied victory over fascism in World War II, is arguably the most important geopolitical statement of 2026, and it went almost entirely unnoticed in the American press. Think about what we are actually watching here. For 75 years, since Winston Churchill gave his Iron Curtain speech in 1946, the post-World War II order was built on a single premise. The United States must remain in permanent tension and sometimes permanent conflict with Russia and China. That architecture, NATO, the rules-based international order, the World Economic Forum globalism, was specifically designed to prevent any combination of major sovereign powers from forming independent relationships outside of Western-controlled institutions. Donald Trump is dismantling that architecture piece by piece. He issued Victory Day proclamations in 2025 and again in 2026, the first American president in modern history to formally acknowledge the allied partnership between the U.S., Russia, and China in defeating fascism. He flew to Beijing for a state visit. He's been in direct communication with Putin, and now Putin is publicly naming the United States alongside China and India as Russia's partners and friends in the context of security arrangements. This is not an accident. This is a coordinated restructuring of global power, and it is happening faster than the globalist establishment can adapt to. Here's where this gets very concrete for everyday Americans. The Toronto summit wasn't just about philosophy. It was about winning back Congress in the 2026 midterms. The Obama-Soros network is betting everything on flipping the House and Senate. If they do, they can block Trump's agenda, launch investigations, and, in their own words, end the interregnum. But that plan just hit some serious obstacles. Last week, the U.S. Supreme Court and the Virginia Supreme Court both issued redistricting rulings that significantly complicate the Democrat path to a House majority. The New York Times, not exactly a Trump-friendly publication, ran a headline calling it "Democrats' Desperation Over Tossed Map." So what is CAP's strategy in response? Neera Tanden spelled it out clearly in Toronto. They need to convince the working class that Trump's economic policies are failing them. The problem with that strategy? Trump's tariff policies are bringing manufacturing back to America. His anti-monopoly push is the first serious trust-busting effort in decades. His energy independence framework is lowering input costs for American industry. The globalists need working-class voters to see themselves as losers and victims, because the moment working-class Americans see themselves as winners in a rebuilding economy, the entire progressive coalition falls apart. So let me pull this all together for you. Here is what you are actually watching in real time. 1. A sitting U.S. president is traveling to Beijing to forge a new economic relationship with China, not as adversaries, but as partners navigating a new world. 2. The Russian president is publicly treating the United States as a partner and friend, not an enemy. 3. The former U.S. president, the world's most famous political financier, and the Canadian Prime Minister are meeting in secret in Toronto because they are scared, not from a position of strength, from a position of desperation. 4. The globalist left is rebranding under the Carney Doctrine. It's same policies, new packaging, because they know their old message is dead. And 5. The 2026 midterms are now the last real hope the old establishment has to stop this transformation, and even that path is getting narrower. The battle lines are not left versus right. They are not Democrat versus Republican. They are sovereign nations versus an unelected global managerial class that has run the world since 1945 and does not want to give that up. Understanding that frame is the difference between being confused by the news and seeing exactly what is happening. If this video gave you a different lens for understanding what is happening in the world right now, please share it. Not for the algorithm, because people in your life are confused and they deserve a clearer picture. Hit subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. We cover the deeper story behind the headlines every week. Drop your biggest question about the Trump-Xi summit in the comments below. I read every single one, and the most interesting ones become the next video.